Stacy was nervous. Her first scuba dive was just a few hours away. Colin made it sound easy, but he had been diving for several years. She was a novice. Just before the dive, they argued over something trivial at a café. Lately, their fights had become more frequent. The instructor discreetly ignored their gloomy faces and patiently explained how to behave underwater. The suits, resembling black sea creatures curled up on the sand, awaited them. Stacy focused on her sensations, a slight noise in her head, a feeling of pressure, but otherwise everything felt great. And why worry? The instructor was nearby, and Colin was keeping an eye on her. 12 meters is considered a safe depth for amateurs. Brightly colored shells flitted in the blue water. Suddenly, Colin grabbed her hand and pulled her up sharply. Stacy was scared. You need to ascend slowly. The instructor tried to stop them but couldn't. Suddenly Colin jerked. A spasm ran through his body, then another. He clawed at his suit as if trying to tear it near his heart. Then his limp hand unexpectedly released her, and Stacy easily surfaced. She hardly remembered how she got to the shore. The instructor pulled Colin out. The instructor performed artificial respiration while Stacy, swallowing tears, stood in a daze. About 30 minutes later, a doctor arrived. After a quick examination, the death was pronounced. The police had to be called. The next thing Stacy remembered was the sting of a cold needle in her arm and sleep. In the morning, she woke up in their white hotel bed. "Colin, I had such a nightmare," Stacy called out. But there was no one beside her. She fully came to her senses when there was a knock on the door. A detective had come to talk about what had happened. She sat before him in a now inappropriate bright beach dress. Numb with grief, Colin was dead. He had died from decompression sickness caused by the rapid ascent. Decompression sickness is a pathological condition that develops with a sharp change in pressure, usually when surfacing from a great depth. With rapid ascent, the pressure inside the vessels changes dramatically, resulting in too much nitrogen. The blood seems to boil. This disrupts the blood supply to vital organs, the heart, lungs, brain. This condition can lead to death. Stacy, whose idea was it to go diving? My husband's. I was scared at first. Did your husband take any medications? Aspirin? Analgin? No, never. He was as healthy as a horse. It's strange at such a shallow depth. Even with the fastest ascent, decompression sickness doesn't develop. The detective pondered over the case materials. Stacy was a peculiar case. Her husband had left her a substantial inheritance, yet she hadn't shown any interest. She didn't seem like a calculating predator. However, her face looked troubled. Was she hiding something? Perhaps. He investigated Stacy's and Colin's backgrounds. Stacy was a former model, now a housewife. Colin was a successful businessman. A happy family, but there was one detail. 3 months ago, Colin had hired a private detective to follow Stacy, suspecting her of infidelity, and with good reason. Stacy had a lover. The betrayed husband found out. That explained her nervousness. The husband had probably threatened her with divorce, and she would have lost everything. Isn't that a motive for murder? The autopsy results were ready. The initial diagnosis of decompression sickness was confirmed, but Colin's blood contained a massive dose of fibrinolytic substances that increase blood clotting, which can be deadly in rapid pressure changes. A search of Stacy's room was conducted. It was the right decision. At the bottom of her suitcase, a powerful fibrinolytic drug was found. One of the packs was almost empty. Stacy was called in for another interrogation, this time being accused of murder. These tablets were prescribed by my gynecologist for heavy periods. I used to have problems with that, she said. But what happened to the nearly full pack? "I don't know," Stacy sobbed. "I didn't keep track of them. It wasn't my fault Colin bought them. He called the doctor before we left, and he advised them." The fibrinolytic drug found in Stacy's bag increases the number of platelets in the blood, enhancing clotting. It reduces the permeability of capillaries and blood vessels. The effect starts within 15 minutes and lasts for 24 hours. It seemed the case was closed, the murder was solved, and punishment was up to the court. But it was necessary to verify the suspect's words and talk to the doctor. Stacy's gynecologist confirmed that he had indeed advised Colin to take Disenan for his wife. Did Colin mention they were planning to dive? He said he was going to dive and Stacy would join if she wanted. I warned him if she took even one pill, she couldn't dive. Stacy found a good lawyer. After reviewing the case results, he frowned. "Yes, the situation is serious. To defend you, I need to know all the details of your family life. Any conflicts recently?" No, Stacy hesitated. She hadn't told anyone about it, but now there was no point in keeping it a secret. Over the past 3 years, she and Colin had grown apart due to his constant business trips. It got to the point where they didn't make love for weeks. When a young student in a nightclub showed interest, she didn't resist his advances. Maybe Colin suspected something, but he never asked, never showed jealousy. He just suddenly left his work and took her on a vacation. Here she experienced a second honeymoon. And then this absurd death. The lawyer carefully reviewed the case materials. It's clear that the cause of death was those unfortunate pills he used. But Colin bought them himself. He knew Stacy couldn't take them while diving, yet he didn't warn her. He knew not to ascend quickly but started the rapid ascent. Maybe he should be suspected of attempted murder, with jealousy as the motive. But no matter how you look at it, Stacy wasn't the intended victim. Then the lawyer found an interesting document, the diving instructor's testimony. "I was surprised why he suddenly pulled her up quickly. You can't ascend fast when diving. He was an experienced diver and should have known. But even I didn't expect this at a depth of just 12 meters. There shouldn't have been decompression." The lawyer reread Stacy's first interrogation, finding a detailed account of that morning. "We went to the café for breakfast, Colin first and I a bit later. He ordered us apple juice, then I chose the food. Colin remembered he left money in the room and asked me to fetch it. But I was lazy, he got upset. While he went for the wallet, the waiter started setting up the food, mixing everything up on the table. I was so upset by the fight that I didn't eat anything, just drank the juice. And that was it. We didn't stay mad for long, made up underwater. And then, suddenly..." Soon one of the cafe waiters was questioned, saying, "I noticed him right away. He was nervous, looking around. Who behaves like that on vacation? Then he took out a handful of pills and put them in a juice glass. I got scared. What if he was a drug addict? I got closer just in case. He noticed my look and calmly explained, 'It's for diabetes. Bring sugar, it's impossible to drink them. They're bitter.' He put 2 spoonfuls of sugar from the sugar bowl into the juice. As a result, the case was closed. Stacy took the news that she could have died at the hands of her husband hard. She burst into tears. 'It's all because of my affair. Colin had nothing to do with it. It's my fault. I killed him.